So I can't believe that it's time to share my June book talk. So when I'm filming this on the 27th. So far I have read 5 books for June. I'm in the middle of reading my 6th book, which is Beach Read. I'm about 100 pages in. I don't know if I'm going to finish, 109 pages. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. I don't want to rush through it because I'm enjoying the book. So I'm thinking it's going to be the first book that I finish for July. So many people will say that they reread this book every year, and so far I'm really liking it, so I don't want to rush through it to get it finished so I can share it for this video. So I just want to mention that I am in the middle of reading my 6th book, but I'm thinking it will be number 1 for July. So I did want to mention that. I didn't want to rush through it. I will tell you, this reading month has not been the best, in my opinion. And some of the books, I like to go back through as I've read the books and see what rating I gave it, and in my brain what I would give it. And like one of the books I will talk about, I originally gave it a 4-star, and I'm going to give it a 3.5. So we're going to start with the book I started first in June all the way up into my recent read. The first book that I read for June is actually a 4-star read, and you're probably going, why did you say that this was not a great reading month? Because it went downhill from this book, and that is The Dead Romantics. So I rated this 4 stars, and I'm not even going to tell you what it's about because I want you to go in the book blind. So this is by Ashley Poston. So I read The 7-Year Slip and wanted to read another book by her. So I started going on Instagram and TikTok. Do you do that? Like when I'm looking for book recommendations, not only do I look on Goodreads, which I do have a Goodreads account, so I will leave that link in the description below. So let's become friends on Goodreads. I will also go to Instagram and TikTok and see what people have said about the books. I did not read what it was about. I always like to look at how many stars somebody gave the book. So decided to pick this one up and really liked it. So I did not think I was going to like this book as much as I did, but I absolutely loved it. Such a cute, light, fluffy read, and a really good one to get the summer started. So also, Ashley Poston has her new book out. Is it The Novel Love Story? I think is what it's called. I want to get that book. Have you read it? If you have, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below. So from this point on, it kind of goes downhill. So the second book I read was an Ellen Hildebrand book. So the first book I read by her was Golden Girl last month. And you guys, I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, there are so many people that love her books. I just really did not like that book that much. And I thought, okay, this one is highly recommended. I'm going to give it a shot. And I read The 5-Star Weekend. It was a good book. Originally, I rated it 4. I'm going to go down to a 3.5. So this book is about Vivi, and her husband dies tragically. And instead of going through this whole grieving process, she decides to have this 5-star weekend where she brings 4 of her friends from her past together for a weekend full of fun and reminiscing and all of this. So that is what this book is about. So lots of deep, dark secrets that are revealed in the book. It was a good book, but it's not one that I feel like is going to stay with me for a long, extended amount of time, if you know what I'm saying. So a 3.5 for this one. Then from that point, I decided to read The Paradise Problem by Kristin Morgan. So this is probably one of the most popular books right now. I think I overhyped this book, and I think that was the problem. So I'm rating this 3.5, and why? The reason I'm rating this 3.5 is because I read The Unhoneymooners last summer and loved it. So to me, the entire time I was reading this book, I was comparing it to that other book. So in my brain, I feel like if I would have read this one first, I would have rated it higher than The Unhoneymooners, which I think I rated that one 3.5 stars. So I just feel like I read that one first. That's why I rated that one higher. But in my opinion, the characters were more likable in The Unhoneymooners than in this book. There were just some of the characters in here that just gave me the ick, if that makes sense. So it was a good book. I recommend reading it, but it just did not come higher to me than The Unhoneymooners. Did anybody else feel that way? Or is it just me? I kind of feel like I'm in the minority. Then book 4 for June was one that I decided to read, and it just had a fun summer cover on it. I was in the let's read a summer book, so I decided to read Malibu Rising. I have so many thoughts to say on this book, and I want to say I looked at book of the month, and I want to say this was like a finalist for like the top book of like 2021, I think. So when it came out, yeah, 2021. And so I had high expectations for this book. I thought it's going to be so good. If it was a finalist for book of the year, it's going to be amazing. It wasn't. I rated it 3 stars, and this is why. This book is broken up into 2 parts. And to me, the parts, it was almost like they were done at way opposite times. Part 1 was amazing. I like the story. It's about 4 siblings, Jay, Nina, Hud, and Kit. And so you get the backstory of them and their parents in part 1. Loved it. I was so into it. Then when I turned that page and it said part 2, everything falls apart. So I was really enjoying the book. Part 1, loved it. Couldn't put it down. Then part 2, I turned the page, it says part 2, turn the page, and it all falls apart. So I'm one of those people that sometimes I have to take notes over a book, because when it starts talking about different people and how they're connected, my brain just cannot absorb everything. So on part 2, it's introducing all of these characters at this party. So I'm mentally trying to remember all this. I'm literally writing notes about these people and how they're connected to this. And then at the end, it's not even important. Like, why did we spend a whole part 2 introducing characters, talking about some of them in depth, for it not to mean anything to the story? So to me, I just felt like part 1 and part 2 didn't even really go together. It wasn't mixed well, if that makes sense. So if we're going to talk about present and past, I felt like they should have been mixed a little bit better. So 3 stars for this one. And I'm giving it 3 because I loved part 1. Last but not least, for June was another Sally Hepworth book. So I read in May, Darling Girls. Loved it so much, loved her writing style, that I wanted to read another book by her. So I picked up The Soulmate. And good story. Rated this one 3.5. Had me on the edge of my seat. But the reason I'm giving it 3.5 was some of the characters were just not likable. So this story starts out by this family that lives on this cliff that's called The Drop. So there is a spot on this cliff that evidently, when somebody wants to commit suicide, that is where they go. So they're looking out their window in the beginning, and they see this girl walk up to the edge to, you know, fall to her death, to commit suicide. So Gabe, the husband, he has been known as this person that has saved every single person from making this fatal fall. So he goes out there to save another woman, and his wife steps away. Then when she looks back up at the window, he's standing there with his arms out, and the woman has jumped. Or did she jump? What exactly happened? So this is about that story. The woman who jumped or fell or was pushed, or you have to determine what has happened through this book. So you get all of these deep, dark secrets and all of this stuff wound up in this story here. So good story. I did not rate it higher than 3.5 because some of the characters were just kind of, I don't know. Even the kids just kind of were like a little creepy to me. I hate to say that. So 3.5 for this one. So those were my 5 books for the month of June. And I feel like that, I know I read 5 books and that's a lot of books, but after sitting here looking at my list, I was a little bit disappointed because I always like to find a 5-star read and I didn't find one this month. So it was a little bit depressing. So I'm hoping with Beach Read, I like that more than some of these books. So now we're going to go to my July TBR. And I have a stack of 6. So now we're going to go to my July TBR, and remember, I'm not mentioning Beach Read because it's back here and I'm already reading that and I've already talked about that. So I have 6 books here that are on my mind to read in July, but like I've said in past book talk videos, I'm a mood reader, so I will literally finish a book and I will come over here and I will look at my cart, my TBR cart back here. If you've not seen that video, I will link that in a card above. And sometimes I will even pick up a book and I'll read the first page, and if it's not giving me the feel that I want, I will put it back. So sometimes I will get through a TBR and sometimes it completely changes and I don't even read one of those books. So the first book here on my TBR that was on my June TBR and I did not get to it is Remarkably Bright Creatures. So I still want to read this. I'm hoping I'm going to read this in July. I've heard it's an amazing book, and look, it's won some awards, so let's hope that I can get to this one. The second one was my book of the month pick for the month of June, and if you've not seen my bookish haul, I don't think I've mentioned that yet. I will link that in a card above where I shared some books I've gotten, my book of the month box, some bookish merch that I've gotten. I will link that in a card above. A Talent for Murder was my book of the month pick, so this one seems really good, so I'm hoping that it is. And I'm hoping that my battery doesn't die because it's blinking at me. The next one, I've heard great things about this. Since I'm reading Beach Read, I asked some people on social media and they said People We Meet on Vacation is really good too. So I'd like to read this one in July. This is one I think people either love it or they hate it. So I would like to read that. This I have heard nothing but amazing things. So this was my book pick for book of the month for I think May, and it is The Return of Ellie Black by Emiko Jean. So I've heard great things, so I definitely want to read this one. This is high up on my TBR for July. Then Anxious People. I almost picked this up to read next, but then I put it down and went with Beach Read. So I've heard great things about this one. And then last but not least is the Rom-Commers. I really want to get to this one, and look at the edges. This is a beautiful book. I've heard great things about this Catherine Center book as well. So that is my TBR for the month of July. We have the Rom-Commers. We have Anxious People. The Return of Ellie Black. The People We Meet on Vacation, A Talent for Murder, and Remarkably Bright Creatures. That is a mouthful if I can get it all out. So, last video, or last book video, I mentioned I wanted to start this like Word. If you've watched the very end, I would like you to comment something in the comment section just so I know that you watched the entire book. So, we're going to mention train. Since I just heard a train come by, it happens every time I film. Just write the word, we're not writing, we're typing. Just type the word train in the comments and it will tell me that you watched all the way through, which I greatly appreciate. So you guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you give it a big thumbs up. By giving my videos a thumbs up, it shows YouTube you're engaged and you like my content, which means they'll start suggesting it and recommending it to more people, which means our community will grow and will continue to spread positivity. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a blessed week. So until next time, bye you guys.